Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Last Hit. You're here for episode 5 as we round out week number 5 of the LPL. It is Sunday, the 11th of July, as we are recording this. So if any of our opinions or any of the scores we talk about are a little bit out of whack, take a look at the date and see if it's actually still relevant, because this might have been recorded 2 weeks ago for all you know. As always, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube. And that's it. So watch on those two platforms. My name is Munchables. I'm joined by Lyric as always, which I'm pointing on the Discord overlay. I don't know if he'll be where I'm pointing on the actual thing. We're also joined by Orcs. As I ramble away, Orcs, a fellow Englishman, two things. First off, you know that it's coming home tonight against Italy. But
Absolutely.
Also, you know a little bit about the LPL now. You've been joining us from the UK scene. You and I go way back. It's great to have you on the LPL. Can you give everyone at home just a little bit of an introduction to yourself for anyone that doesn't know about your backstory?
Sure. So, my name's Orcs. I've been casting since around the end of 2017. Prior to that, I was actually playing for XL before they were in the LEC. And since then, I've had the pleasure of casting the UK scene, currently the Northern scene, EU Masters, and now the LPL, of course. And had the opportunity to cast with Joe at EU Masters back in the day, which was a bit of a banger. So throw back to that one. But yeah, that's essentially me.
Yeah, we got to see, it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was X-Matty versus Deadly as well, the UK AD carry face-off just years prior. It was 2019 summer, if anyone wants to go check out that semi-final.
Giants against Fnatic Rising.
Was it Fnatic Rising? Oh, yeah, Giants is Vodafone. I was going to say it wasn't
Vodafone
Vodafone.
Giants.
Yeah, that is Giants.
Yeah.
Yeah. My brain isn't working. I'm just off of the casts from today, so I apologize if I'm a little bit loopy today, boys and girls. But let's get into the episode. Lyric, I'm going to kick it over to you to start us off, if I can speak correctly. Let's do failures and faves. Mr. Lyric, sir, what is your failure for week number 5?
So I think my failure has to be IG. As someone who actually has IG decently high in their pre-split power ranking for Mine in Your Bet, I'm not feeling too good about that one. They lost to Rogue Warriors this week. They got 2-0'd by RNG. I feel like the RNG one is whatever. Both teams are ranked low. We saw in that series, it was pretty much just top gap. Xiaohu completely destroyed the Shy both games in a row. It didn't look like the Shy was very familiar with the Gwen versus Viego matchup. Xiaohu finding numerous solo kills within that series. And overall, the team just still having the same issues, right? That their bot lane has a ton of problems. We saw in game 1 against RNG. IG were actually in a commanding position in that game. They were doing a really good job. I actually really like IG's early game. They have these really cool 5-man dive spot where they're able to get massive advantages. But then there's one play where Wink comes out of the brush when Xiaohu chases him across the rift, gives him the reset on Viego, and then he's just able to take over. I think then gets a kill onto Lucas, and then is able to get close to killing someone else, and his teammate can finish it off. And yeah, this team they don't have any structure. Their mid game is so flawed. They make so many small, minute issues, like in the Rogue Warriors series, where once again IG were winning. Rookie face checking into the enemy jungle right in front of Baron, gives Rogue Warriors the Baron, and that was the defining thing in the Rogue Warriors series as well. Making one issue right in front of a Baron, giving Rogue Warriors kind of the keys to the car and allowing them to take the series. So I think IG are in a really weird position where there's really no good swap they do with the roster, really no easy fixes for them, and we're quickly getting close to where, hey, you guys need to pick up more wins or you're not making playoffs.
It's a dicey situation. I have to say as well, the top lane is so sad for me that the Shy comes in, has a really bad series, and obviously we all know the Shy is capable of absolutely dominating. I don't have any doubt that he's completely lost his I don't believe he's completely lost his form like a lot of people are saying on social media. But at the same time, I just feel bad for Naney, man. He's been having such a good split. It feels so unlucky that he's just stuck behind literal world champion the Shy on this roster. It's the same story for Xiaohu on FVX, right? Stuck behind literally the current world champion top laner Nuggery. Feels like these two are inevitably going to ride the bench to some extent across the course of this split, and I don't know. I want to see more from them. Maybe they get their opportunities next year. Maybe they do get to play more. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Orcs, we'll go over to you. What's your failure for this week?
My failure is LNG. They're currently on a 2-loss streak. I mean, considering how high they are in the standings, it's a pretty rough run. And particularly the fact that they ended up losing to Ultra Prime was just really disastrous. I feel like in that series, there's a couple of problems. One, there's like just way too much inactivity in the early game. It often felt like Ultra Prime were sort of setting things up more proactively. We often saw them, secure in the Herald. And I think game 3 in particular was like a really rough one where we saw LNG go into the situation where they had 3 lanes without priority and a wicked early game jungler. And then they just like naturally lost the game because what are you supposed to do in that situation? And, Light was getting bullied bot lane in Kai'Sa into Aphelios. We saw bot tower fall without a Herald even being used. It felt like they kind of just sat there and lost the game. And I mean, even the game they won in that series, game 2, Herald actually went over to this side of Ultra Prime and they used it to get 2 towers top lane. And with the changes to give that tier 2 extra gold, like they could have lost that game as well. I just feel like, there was a lot of people having this discussion around LNG. They look good now, but are we really convinced by them? And they've started to falter. And I think losing to Rare Apple, it's not a problem. It's like Rare Apple are a good team. It happens. But this loss is really just raising a lot of question marks because in fairness, Ultra Prime played pretty well, but it was just really poor play from LNG.
I feel like the big thing that stood out to me in that series was game 1 because game 1 you look at their draft and you're like, okay, this is totally playable. You have like a Prio mid lane matchup with LeBlanc against Vladimir. You have Ale on the Mundo and he was doing fine against Renekton. And there was like so many windows where I'm like, okay, when are you guys going to do something against Aphelios Vladimir? And then every time I'd go and look for like a window where they can, maybe send Tarzan mid, then look to roam bot and try and find either a dive or a gank. It's like, okay, well, Icon's trying to solo kill the Vladimir and then ends up having to flash away himself and lose. It's like, well, there's your window for moving mid. Then at the same time, there's another time where they look to make a play on Dragon. They don't have TP advantage. And Ollie's pushing the wave, can easily roam down, doesn't. He's looking to try and solo kill the enemy top laner, guys. Oh, darn, look, the enemy top laner TP's down and you lose the fight. So they're just so bad at using those windows pre-15 minutes. And like you said, even game 2, I think Ultra Prime were up like 2,000 gold. And then they had one team fight at Dragon where they had Xiaohu look for a flank. And it's like you have a one-threat composition with the Sivir, right? You can't really look for a flank. Everyone has to be in front of that Sivir. And they throw it away, but... yeah, I think LNG are kind of getting a bit exposed in that first 15 minutes for sure.
Yeah, it does feel like it's a little bit rough for LNG right now. And, maybe it gets better. Maybe it does get better. It's 2 series on the trot that they've lost. Maybe it's possible. But I know, like, me and Lyric have spoken about this previously on this podcast. That
no mojo.
Neither of us are huge advocates of LNG. They just don't have the mojo. I feel like everyone's getting sick of me talking about mojo. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people don't even know what I mean when I talk about mojo. So let me just quickly explain. Mojo is like the pizzazz, It's that killer instinct, that win factor. It's like any one of those, like teams like top esports. That's all about mojo, right? Because any one of those players could just pop off and win the game, and just you never feel like you can count them out. That's mojo. And LNG, they just don't got that.
They got Tarzan.
Yeah.
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 You don't sound very convinced, Joe.
Yeah, no, I'm not. All right, I'm going to move on to my failure. As we round out with teams that have looked really good at the start of the split up, but are starting to falter. LGD are going to be my failure coming into this one. I feel like LGD were a team that I've been really hyped about recently. Like, coming into week 5, I was really excited because it was like, okay, RNG looking really weakened. Maybe this is an opportunity for LGD to put a really important win on the board, because when it comes to tiebreakers later on, RNG have a really bad score in the standings right now. So it's a very real possibility that tiebreakers matter between LGD and RNG. I was like, weakened RNG, LGD in their stride. They're getting 2-0 after 2-0. They beat Sunni, they beat IG, they beat Rogue Warriors, which, not all the most impressive teams to beat, but hey, they were looking good. RNG just come in and just absolutely pound them into the floor, and then they play against FPX, which is a version of FPX that isn't even the real FPX. They had 2 rookies subbed in, essentially, and FPX just demolished them. It wasn't even close. I was just like, what happened, LGD? Where did it all go? Like, Kramer and Mark especially, I think, had a really rough series. Shadow, I feel like getting just out-jungled as well. Like, I don't know. There was a lot of issues for LGD. It's hard to pinpoint just one thing that went wrong across those 2 series, because it felt like there were many, many issues there. But I don't know. LGD, maybe it was a flash in the pan. Maybe they don't have the momentum to keep it going. I mean, what do you guys reckon on LGD here? Because I know a lot of people on Twitter are getting really excited about them. But
I feel like the big things that stood out to me, especially in their loss against FPX, was how much Shadow underperformed compared to what we've seen, and then Xie getting just dumpstered by DoomB. I mean, Xie got solo killed in game 2, was consistently behind in laning phase, but Shadow, I think he still had really, really great early pathing. You saw in one game, Tien went for a level 2 gank top on Viego, which is like, okay, it's cheesy, it worked out, but you're going to get punished, right? Shadow does that, goes into his bottom side jungle, steals his blue, wraps around, goes into his top side jungle, steals his raptors. But then there were so many weird moments. I remember in one game, I think it was game 2, where he goes behind the turret and tries to solo kill Xiaohu, who's like 2 levels above him, does his full combo, like kicks him away, and then Xiaohu is like, yo, I'm 2 levels above you, I have more gold than you, have more items, just turns around and kills him. And there were a lot of moments like that, a lot of Diana engages onto tanks, Moonfalls onto tanks, and then FPX just being like, cool, we're just going to kill you right now. And when he was your only member that truly looked like a potential star on this team, in my opinion, it's like, what else do you really have? Even Fearness has not been playing as well. If I remember correctly, Xiaohu solo killed him in that series as well. And yeah, the top side of the map is crumbling, and the top side of the map is what made LGD overperform or stand out, in my opinion.
Yeah, I felt like there were definitely moments in the earlier sessions where I felt like the team had good like setups, and you expect this in the FPX series when FPX are playing with a new top laner, a new AD carry, and then they've had their AD carry move to support. It's going to be a bit disjointed. So I came into this thinking this should be LGD favored. They started off reasonably well. Like you said, there was the moments where he punished that level 2 gank top. And then when it got to the moments where they were grouping, where they were team fighting, it felt so disjointed to me. I remember one game they had like very clear win conditions with regards to a team fight, and just they never found the engage they needed. The Diana just not really working for them. And then we saw, this lineup from FPX where it was I just really had low expectations, and I was like, whatever they can do is good. Like we had LWX on Alistair, and he was finding these great engages on the pick, looking really good.
He looked great.
And they were just, they were actually slaughtering them. And I was in every fight, it felt like the consistent theme was when it came to team fights, even if they'd accrued an advantage or not, it just felt like the team fights, they just couldn't hold up against them. And it was really weird to me that this team, which is like a complete mix-up of the players you'd expect for FPX, can just out-team fight the full LGD roster, and it just raised so many question marks for me. And credit though to the rookies who came up, because I think Jing Yi on his Draven was really good, and Xiaohu, I believe, solo killed Fairness, had that 3v2 kill, which again, like, you got to give praise to them, but at the same time, LGD, how do you lose that series?
I just want to hit on that setup point really quick because, man, I think you hit the nail on the head. There was so many fights where LGD are going through like the perfect steps. Like both side lanes are set up. They're making sure to push it midway first, all visions down. And then like FPX always just ignores it and engages on them. And they look so confused. They look like, wait, your waves are getting pushed in. You don't have vision. How could you do this? And then, they all die because maybe Shadow and Fearness are still walking up trying to like clear more pink wards or whatever, and then DoomB will come out of nowhere and look for the engage. Or I remember Tien had one really pop off Viego game where finds the engage right onto Shadow, takes him out of the fight right away. But their setup was always clean. Just when it came to the execution of team fights or even anticipating what FPX could or would do, it just wasn't there.
I felt like the way I saw it was like LGD was like the smart team. They're like, oh, we've got all this macro, this is how we'll execute. And then FPX are just like, we're going to win fights. And it's like, that's all you need. That's all you need in this meta.
They've got the mojo, baby.
They've got the mojo.
I'm just saying, it was all mojo. I'm the only thing that I'm really sad about with FPX. I mean, obviously, we have no idea how this is going to pan out across the course of the split. I hope they can maintain this ridiculous performance. I have no idea what's happening with the roster, but I'm gutted that they've already played RNG, because it means we don't get Xiaohu versus Xiaohu at the top lane. We don't get the little tiger standoff that would have been so good. But anyway, I digress. Let's talk about favorites. Let's move the conversation on. We'll go back to you again, Orcs, to start us off. Oh, wait, it was Lyric that started us off. We'll go back to you, Lyric, to start us off. Who's your favorite for the week?
So, my favorite gets to just go to a conversation we already had. My favorite's Ultra Prime. I really liked how they played, especially in that game 1 against LNG. I think Hacker absolutely popped off. Even his pathing early on to where I think that was a game where LNG picked up the set and he anticipated that, Set's always going to go for that flash play because you don't need flash. Flash is in on the LNG bot lane. He's there. They pick up a kill. Rotates towards mid because Tarzan was spotted out on a ward. Counter ganks mid, is able to get summoners there. And he pretty much just was able to take over the game off of that. And overall, when Ultra Prime get a lead, Ultra Prime actually have like pretty decent like understanding of how to play the map and how to set up objectives themselves. Their team fighting was better than LNG's all series long. Like I said, they made one mistake in game 2 where things didn't come together. But even then, if Up had any other composition that just wasn't Sivir and a bunch of meat shields and a Karma, even then that engage was actually pretty good. Just you don't have the comp to facilitate that sort of engage. So yeah, I think Ultra Prime played really well this week. I think their biggest issue will always be, are they going to get stomped in lanes by teams that just have better laners and more experienced players? But I don't expect any sort of miracle run. I feel like it's far too early for anything like that. But a good win against LNG is definitely a good start, especially for people like Xiaohu, who, right, he was getting subbed in and out earlier on, and this is a guy who's super hyped, looked really good in the LDL, I'm sorry. He was the rookie I was most excited for, and we haven't really gotten to see him have that performance. So hopefully if Up can get some confidence and they do stick to a roster, then we'll get to see him play more and improve as well.
Yeah, I want to mention on Up as well that you're mentioning how good the team fighting was. The team fighting was the thing that got us excited about Up at the start of this split, right? If I remember correctly, they won 1 or 2 series right back to back at the start of the split. Oh, they beat Rogue Warriors. Okay, maybe I was just too excited.
I think they won a
game. They took a game off of FPX.
Yeah, they won that game, and it was really cool. I remember that Orianna played top right with Xiaohu about kind of like kiting around, really good skirmishes. And then after that, it all fell apart. After that one game, it was gone.
We got really excited about it, and then it was wrong. But hey, the team fighting does look good. They are mechanically decent players. It's just laning, not the strongest suit. So, over to you again, Orcs. What was your favorite coming out of week 5?
For me, I think it was Billy Gaming. They're on a bit of a hot streak. I think particularly the top side of the map has been performing really well. I think their drafting has been good and they've adapted quickly. Like the Olaf has sort of had quite a bit of resurgence. And you see Weiwei often prioritizing that with BB on the Lee Sin. And then they use that early agency just to find pretty big advantages. And I think in the fights, they've been playing really well on top of that. Like BB, I mean, it's not really in the fights as such, but we had that 1v3 dive essentially, well, staggered 1v3 against FPX. Really strong mechanical performance then. When it comes to team fights, they perform well. And I really want to emphasize Zika, because I think he's been pretty diverse in terms of champion pool. And one big standout thing for me is we've seen quite a bit of LeBlanc recently, and there's some players who sort of don't find as much early agency on LeBlanc as you'd like. There's some players who, when it comes to team fights, it just feels like they can't make the impact. I feel like Zika's doing both. You know, he's able to find that impact on the LeBlanc in the early levels and assist his jungler, but then even when it comes to team fights, he's able to clean up and find kills, which is harder to do in this meta where, you know, there's a lot more bulky bruisers running about who you may not just be able to one-shot with your combo, but he's been doing really well there. I think even things like the Silas, he's been having a bit of that early agency that you don't always see from players on those picks.
I feel like one thing that he does really well is that I feel like the biggest thing about his LeBlanc that you see that is better than everyone else is just how he plays around Fog of War, especially for those team fights, right? Because it seems like he's always positioned just in the perfect angle to find that burst combo onto the key carry or to finish off a frontliner. And he's always just sitting over some wall with like a control ward right there. And it's something you don't see players do. And then my last point, Joe, before you can, go and, talk praise of Billy's. I just love how Bubu transforms into this like weak side, timid. He's only going to play tanks on V5 player 2. Pretty much your generic LPL top laner of he's always going to look for the knife fight and play over aggressive. So BLG just once again said screw it like they did before and said, okay, we're just going to put all of our resources into him. And hey, it worked out. They looked to tilt Nuggery so much that FPX said, hey, this man needs a break.
It wasn't even BLG putting all the resources in BB. It was FPX putting all the resources in BB. They just like gift him a fucking 3. I can't even swear on the podcast, but that play was just. Go back and watch FPX BLG versus FPX. There's a dive that FPX pull off.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into it.
I also think
I just want to
quickly. You go.
Go on. No. You go.
Okay. I was just gonna say, when they were against Rogue Warriors, I really liked. They ended up picking the enemy team ended up picking Braum blind, and they took the bot into it. They really punished it. You saw PP God consistently roaming off the back of that. I think draft isn't everything. Obviously, there's a lot more to the game than that. But I think there's some teams who sort of make mistakes in draft and they're not always punished. But I think we've seen BLG taking opportunities to punish that and finding advantages like that make the game really hard to play for the other side.
Yeah, definitely agree. One thing I will say, because we're just spending a little bit of time all complimenting BLG here, I do want to add a caveat here. And that's that while they're on a 3-win streak, they've beaten V5, who are 0-9 in the LPL right now. They've beaten Rogue Warriors, who are, 2-7 in the LPL right now. I mean, V5, by the way, literally just a singular game win. Yes, they did get the series against FPX, but inevitably, this team is going to go on a 4-win streak now because they're against TT next. So you expect another team that they should pretty comfortably beat in a series. But then, this week, week 6, they go against Top Esports. That will be the test, right? That'll be the moment where it's like, okay, is BLG actually going to be a top team? Is this a team that can contend for the top spots? Or is this just a middle-of-the-table hot streak because of the schedule? We'll have to find out. That'll happen in week number 6. I'm going to move the conversation on because talked a lot about BLG here. I'm going to finish things off with my favorite. And let's be honest, I've got lions on my shirt right here. And there's another lion I'd love to have on my shirt because Suning, oh baby, Suning are on a hot streak and a half. Now, BLG, sure, hot streak, yeah. They've beaten V5, good stuff. Suning are on a real hot streak. They've smashed RNG. They beat OMG comfortably. And then today, they 2-1 Top Esports. A Top Esports that are looking pretty in form as well, by the way. Suning has stepping up, and especially On as well. Like, On still has issues. He's certainly not the perfect support, but looking way better than anything we've seen from him previously, certainly than Spring. I think Suning are finally starting to look like a team that has a little bit more oomph about them. We're actually getting to see some early game proactivity from Suning, which is something we've basically never seen from Suning. Even back when Swordart was on the team, it was much more about the mid game and the late game, almost never about trying to snowball in the early game. So I'm actually really excited about the Suning squad, genuinely excited. Not just like copium excited, but like they're actually showing us some good stuff. I don't know what you guys think. Am I too excited for Suning right now?
Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I think you take this one.
Okay.
Don't do it, Lyric.
I'm really hyped for Suning. I feel like for me, the big thing has been SFM a lot more proactive in the early game, and the way he approaches the jungle is really intelligent. It feels like he's often challenging for camps. We actually talked about this a little bit yesterday on our Castro, the chickens. He's always there, like every time he's trying to steal those away and take them from the enemy team. But it's like the whole team sort of plays around that, and I think it gives On a really proactive role to sort of move up and assist with those. They'll challenge enemy junglers, and I think particularly we see them often in the recent week go in blue side, giving over Diana to the other team, and then they will challenge Diana like level 1 to 5 when she's not got as much agency and find that momentum, and it just gives them a lot of tools to play with in the early game because you get that lead onto SOFM. He then feels more confident to push his advantage, and particularly on things like the Lee Sin, he's been just absolutely smurfing, and got good things to say about the jungle, but the solo laners as well have been really performing. I think Bin in the current meta on Gwen, Camille, just absolutely monstrous. And Angel, Silas. Akali as well. Angel on Silas, it feels like that's another champion where, some players, you see them on it and it's like they don't have as much early impact. I believe we saw a game earlier today where we saw Silas get absolutely bullied out in the laning phase. I've forgotten who it was at the top of my head. Up against Lee Sin, just completely shut down, wasn't really relevant in the game. Whereas we sort of see Angel able to have that agency and join in with the skirmishes in those early levels. So I'm hyped for Suning. Ultimately, I think they can make the miracle run and sort of challenge the top team. So I guess we see.
Lyric, I can see you smirking over there.
No, you can't.
Are you gonna?
You can't see anything.
Are you gonna destroy my dreams? Tell me about Suning.
I'm not destroying your dreams. Suning is just another team I just don't feel comfortable putting my faith in. I feel like even though Suning have become more proactive early in their recent series, they're still a lot more disconnected than most teams. And the big thing that stands out to me about why Suning are doing so much better than early in the split is Bin early in the split was actually performing pretty atrociously. It was like losing in lane consistently. Him and SOFM had the lowest top jungle proximity by far, but he was still playing like his jungle was always around. He wasn't a top laner who typically like pushes his wave and moves. Even in mid game, doesn't really use his like wave management or side wave pressure well to impact the team. But lately, Bin's just been popping off. I think especially today, right? That game to Akali game, I think was absolutely phenomenal coming out from him. He's been allowed to get Gwen like multiple games in a row, despite numerous times showing how broken this champion is and how good he is on it. There was one series where I can't remember who they played, but I just remember Suning had like a 3v5 at Baron Pit, and it's like, hey, Bins on Gwen, completely able to take over, turn that game into a Suning win. So for me, I feel like Suning are so heavily reliant on their like individual talent to play well, and even though like their early game I think has improved, to me this team is still best in team fights right now, and it's kind of reminiscent of last year where I actually don't think their team fight setup overall is very good in terms of like, if they have a front to back or if they need a flank or they need this or that. It's like they rely on the individuals to find those pop-off moments themselves. Luckily for them right now, Angel and Bin are amazing, but I personally am not going to bet my money on Suning individual talent when we have teams like EDG, RNG, FPX. Like, there's so many other individually stacked teams with higher ceilings.
Whoa. You would have said top esports any other day. You would have said top esports in that list. Suning just beat top esports.
Top esports are in that list. If you give me a Suning top esports best of 5 and ask me to make a prediction, I'm going to predict top esports every single time. Every single time, Joe.
Well, I don't care about your facts and logic. All I care about is my emotions. I've got the results-based analysis on my side. And hey, Suning won the best of 5 at Worlds, so who's the real winner here?
That's true.
Let's move on. Because I think we're at the end of week 5, right? We've got 9 weeks of regular split. So I think it's about time we have a bit of a recap of what's been happening in the LPL. For anyone at home that wants to watch the LPL, that are listening to this podcast, and you're like, I'm interested, but I don't really know any of the teams. I don't know the big storylines. I don't know what's going on. 17 teams is too many teams. I feel you. Don't worry. We're going to go through a couple of the major storylines so far in the recent weeks and talk to you about some of these teams and why you should be excited for them. So the first one I think we should talk about is RNG, right? Coming back as MSI champions, and to give you guys a bit of a fill-in case you have missed what's been happening towards the start of the LPL, RNG had a really rough re-entry into the LPL. In their first 6 series, they only won 1, and it was against Rogue Warriors, one of the worst teams in the entire league. They had been looking really terrible. But then, week number 5, we see RNG beat LGD, and we see RNG beat IG. Now, my question to you guys is, are RNG back, or was this just strength of schedule? Was this just a flash in the pan? Like, where do you guys sit with RNG? Because looking at those games, they're feeling like they got a bit of that pizzazz back,
I feel like I wouldn't say RNG are back, right? Because back means they're going to be LPL champions. But I think they're definitely on like a path of improvement. I think that's very clear to see. The biggest problem for them was obviously the meta. They figured out just putting Cryan back on the champions that he's played for years. We're seeing the Orianna come out. We know Cryan's able to play LeBlanc because of 2020 when he was on E-Star. And then even in terms of jungle, though I don't think there was a champion pool issue there, I think the way RNG likes to play is they've quickly adapted to being one of the teams that likes to give over like early dragons or like early neutral objectives to make gold trades on the map. Not even necessarily for Herald. They're a team that does put a lot of like emphasis on getting first turret and actually ganking lanes a lot. So they have some of the highest like early kill stats in the league and have the lowest like first dragons, first Herald. So I think they have a very interesting way of playing the game, which makes something like the Olaf super important for them as compared to maybe something like a Diana where, right, you're just farming until level 6. But their win against LGD wasn't all that convincing by any means. That was super back and forth both games and pretty much came down to RNG defaulting back to that side lane style, which they have kept. It's really been their team fighting where they've struggled, but playing through side lanes, finding a pick on Defearness was pretty much what allowed them to beat LGD in both games. The IG series, I can't take a lot from that, man. The Shy just didn't show up. The Shy didn't perform, but yeah, I think there's good and bad things for RNG on both sides, but definitely a team on the upward trajectory. It is time to buy into those RNG stocks right now.
Yeah, invest when the cost's low. I feel like as well with the IG series is, that as a team, they've been a bit mixed in terms of their results. They're kind of in a similar boat where lower than expectations. So I'm not sure there's too much weight. And LGD as well aren't exactly on like the smoothest run. I feel like they need to sort of go up against a more formidable opponent and have a good result before we kind of have those expectations. I do feel though, even though it's like slight shifts, like you were talking about the Cryan's champion pool, things like the Orianna, we've had the mage items lowered in cost, the mythics, we've had Olaf, slightly buffed and found a more constant place in the meta. I feel like as things have shifted a bit, those have definitely favored them. So potentially this is them sort of ramping up and also feeling a bit more comfortable in the meta, having more picks available to them. And I guess we'll get our test. We'll get to see. I think coming up on the schedule, they have EDG. So
V5.
Yeah, V5. There we go.
It's gonna be a big one.
That's a big one. That's the I guess even if they lose against EDG, which realistically I would say they probably will, based on like current form, we'll get to see more of them. Well, I feel like it's a good litmus test. If they can hold up, even take a game of them, I think it kind of indicates that they are playing at a good level.
Okay, so let's. I think that's a perfect point to segue into talking briefly about EDG. Now, I don't want to hit too hard on EDG. I don't want to talk about them for the rest of the episode. But I think for anyone that's not been watching, EDG currently the top team. They're 9-1 right now. Like they have pretty much guaranteed their spot in playoffs already, and they're not looking like they're going to be dropping many series for the rest of the split. They have a positive 15 game difference. They're 18-3 right now in games. They're looking pretty unstoppable. Do you guys want to give me a brief little rundown of like what is it that separates EDG from the pack so heavily right now? Because it does feel like there's a gap.
Talking about good teams just hurts my soul. Ox, take it away. Take it away.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good things to say about EDG. I think the way they, their aggression is kind of, even in the LPL, it feels like it's on another level. They're able to push advantages so significantly, even sort of manifest advantages where they aren't there. I think the individual talent is pretty insane. Vipe in particular, their AD carry is, I feel like, on another level. Really strong performer, and it feels like they're consistently able to find these windows to apply pressure. I think every member is sort of on a similar page, and it feels like that level of coordination is there. When we're talking about other teams where, they make good plays, but it's more individualistic, this is a team with strong individuals who also feel like they're playing as a team together and as a unit. And I think, my highlight at the moment, it's hard to specifically highlight, but I feel like the bot lane has been so good. Mako and Viper, absolutely on form and just able to outclass most bot lanes in the league, which is a hard feat.
For any LPL fans out there who don't know, those little 5-minute segments with those dumb graphics that you don't watch before the match. Us casters, we do those ourselves. And EDG is a team I hate doing it for, because this team is just so I always use the word standard. They're kind of they're above average at everything, which is why I think they're so consistently good in LPL, right? It's like they have good players in every role, so they can just lane gap you and lane kingdom you and beat you in that way. In terms of dragon setups, how they use side waves, their balance between early ganking and farming Jeje up to be a threat depending on his champion. It's like they do everything decently well. And that's why, to kind of tangent into maybe how teams could beat EDG and why a team like Top Esports did, I feel like more specialist teams who have a weirder style or index heavily into one area, like TS with early game and playing through lane kingdoms, and Karsa really going ham in those early game ganks. I feel like that's the only way you can beat EDG. Same with RNG, right? They specialize in playing through side lanes, and it's not necessarily all about team fights or those sort of setups. So if you just play a more standard game against EDG, I think you lose every time, because they're too polished. They're too good across the board, and they really don't have a weakness. Even Flandre, who I think has still been the most criticized member even this split, despite having that amazing first 2 weeks. It's this man gets no resources. EDG almost never go top. Jeje certainly doesn't. Scout does very little. And then Mako and Viper are pretty much always together. Always. I mean, they have one of the highest duo proximities in LPL. And I mean, you can even see that watching their games. They play to dominate you in lane. So EDG are a scary team, I think, internationally. This actually might be our scariest team at Worlds, in my opinion. But I think they actually have one of the lower chances of winning LPL, just because I think they are kind of countered by teams like RNG, like Top Esports, when they're playing in form.
That's the crazy thing, is that this is the league of specialist teams as well. When you think about both LPL World Champions, it was IG and FPX, who were not necessarily the best all-around teams at the time, certainly out of the LPL teams, but were really, really good at one style, and just absolutely demolished everyone at the World Championship because of that, in both of the 3-0ing the finals. Feels like EDG could fall prey to that in LPL playoffs, but I don't know. They do look very good. They do look very clean. And also, I do think that the one big thing that they have is, as you're saying, the laners are very good. I don't think that they're going to be lane gapped, and I think especially Scout stepping up in a big way is going to be super crucial when it comes to playoffs, because I think mid lane is maybe the most important lane in LPL right now. That and top when Gwen is in the game, because Gwen is just Gwen is just Gwen. So let's move the conversation on from EDG, and I want to hit on a few of these teams as we move down the standings. So I think it's worth just having a little cursory conversation about Rare Atom. Again, we'll start to speed this conversation up a little bit because I don't want to spend 10 minutes on every single team. But Rare Atom, for anyone that doesn't know, this is not, while roster-wise it's the same Rare Atom that we saw in spring, it doesn't feel like they have the same, I don't know, I feel like I can put more faith in Rare Atom than I could in spring. And I feel like actually they're sort of similar to EDG in some ways, in that they're kind of standard, right? They're kind of predictable in how they play. I feel like they tick a lot of boxes, and so by default will just beat any teams that are lower than them in the standings. But then when it comes to like clutch factor, they never sit as high as teams like FBX or Top Esports or EDG in my mind.
So I think you hit the nail on the head, right? They're not the same as EDG in terms of how they play the game, but they're the same in terms that I think they have strong laners across the board, less so than EDG. It's not necessarily like a star-studded roster, but I think you would have every player on this team in like the top half of LPL players in their position, and then Fofo definitely being, I don't even know where you'd put him, right, because the LPL mid's so stacked, but arguably somewhere top 3, maybe even top 2, right, if you kind of like go into the nitty-gritty details. But for me, I just really like the way that RA are playing right now, which is such a surprise because I hated this team in spring. I feel like two things that they massively improved on is, first of all, just mid-jungle, Fofo and Lil working together. We know Lil doesn't typically play too much around Fofo, but I think Fofo does a good job of, when he does have a prio lane, he will enable Lil and his style of playing the game. And then the second thing is RA, even though RA aren't super proactive in the first 15 minutes, I really like the way, like how they get down early vision and kind of play to deny the enemy jungle from being able to do anything. It's kind of like, hey, we know we have strong laners across the board. I don't need to gank for any of my laners, as long as the enemy jungle also can't look for ganks, so I'm going to go in, invade his camps, kind of distract him. We know we're going to get to a good point to where RA gets to that prime 15-minute mark where it's like, hey, we're just going to start stacking dragons and get our team fights, and then at like 30 minutes, we're just going to win the game.
And honestly,
Sorry, go.
Okay, I feel like that.
We're doing it again. The classic online podcast shenanigans.
Yeah. I feel like that sort of angle of shutting down the enemy jungler and challenging them and denying them from ganking, I really favor that style in the current meta, because I know they've obviously lengthened the camp timers, so there's more of a window to gank and be proactive, but I still feel like it's so risky to go for ganks. We've seen, cheesy ganks be punished. We saw Shadow do that in his series we were talking about before. And I feel like, that wasn't even an example of it being like counter-ganked or something like that. I feel like if you have a gank and it backfires, you just end up in such a hole completely. And with the strength of a lot of the junglers at the moment, things like Dana, things like the Lee Sin that even scales well in these skirmishes, if you fall behind, it feels like you just completely get shut out of the game. So I much prefer when they get those gradual advantages where they challenge in a couple of camps, shut the enemy jungler out a bit, they get a bit of a lead, and then they feel more confident to go for those plays because they actually have strength, rather than, I've cleared 3 camps, let's coin flip the game on whether this gank works.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I want to continue to move the conversation on. There's another team I want to hit on in the standings. We're not going to go through the entire standings because we simply just don't have time on the podcast, unfortunately. But let's quickly talk about JDG, because they're sneaking their way up the standings right now. They're on a 3-win streak. I asked you guys if you thought RNG were back, and it feels like it's a similar question here for JDG. 3-win streak, managing to beat out WE, managing to beat out RA, a team we just praised about how consistent they are and how good they are against the other teams that are lower than them in the standings. Well, JDG was significantly lower. Are JDG back on form? Because Yagao especially, my God, this guy is popping off. It feels like the roster shenanigans in the bottom lane have kind of been resolved. I think Loken is just going to be sitting as the main roster now. How convinced are you guys that JDG can continue to take series?
I'm going to be a bit of a fence sitter on this one because, unfortunately, I didn't get to watch the whole WE-JDG series today because I cast tomorrow, so I was preparing, the work for that series. But even thinking back to their series against Rare Atom, there was one really cool thing I liked that they did was in that game 2 against RA, when Kanavi pulled out the Graves, like, right, you see Graves, he's like, okay, power farming, like playing for team fights later on, and he kind of ignored his jungle for like 4 minutes or something, and he just kept going bot. And there was even a time where he sat in bot brush, I think, for like 40 seconds. And I love this for JDG just for the fact that, right, their whole play style last year was built on the fact of Lumao getting out of lane, and then Kanavi and Lumao linking up, being able to get deep vision in the enemy jungle, and then kind of baiting and playing around that, looking for picks to find objectives. So it's like, hey, if your bot lane's been struggling so hard this split, just literally make it a 3v2, force your bot lane to pretty much always have prio, because after, you know, the ganks or the pressure you put down, you're going to be able to force the enemy bot lane off waves, your AD carry is going to get an XP advantage, and now your support can move and you can get the play style you've always wanted. So I think there's like some cool quirky things about JDG. I think JDG have shown that they're still like, you know, they're not the smartest team in LPL, but they're like clever. There we go. They're a clever team who can like figure out how to play. They still bring out their picks, right? We still see Zoom. Zoom's most played this split, I still think, is set in Ornn, which is just absolutely crazy when you think about this meta. And like you're saying,
it's fun to see.
I feel like individually, pretty much everyone other than the bottom lane performs consistently well. I think their whole top half of the map, consistent performers. Loken and Lumao, I still think have question marks. The game 1 against RA, Lumao just completely ran it down like 5 times in a row. So I'm like cautiously optimistic for JDG.
What do you reckon?
I like just that he was bringing up the spicy picks when we had Kanavi bringing out the Shaco today earlier. And I was like, it worked really well though. Great. It actually had such a good amount of impact. I agree with the sentiment that the top half of the map has really been performing. I think the solo lane is a solid, and Zoom has had some really good performances. I think Kanavi is a player who, again, I was talking a bit about jungle identities. I feel like he kind of just he's very sort of flexible in how he wants to approach a game, and will sort of, you know, approach it in a way where he thinks, what is the best outcome here, rather than like not necessarily having a specific plan, like this is how I want to play this champ. It's like, okay, judging from the condition of the map, what can I do here to sort of facilitate my team?
Yeah, definitely feels like, to me at least, I'm on board. I think JDG's back. I think they're going to have a great playoffs. I'm excited because when you look through the top teams, right, we've got EDG, who we're all on board with, RA, that we're all pretty on board with, LNG, we're not so sure, but then JDG, top esports, Billy, who was Dan's favorite this week. We've got Suning on the resurgence, OMG, who have fallen off a bit, but still really, really fun to watch. If you want just action-packed games, go watch some OMG VODs, because they just run dive compositions every game. They just go in. Even when it's a terrible fight, they just go in. I love it. LGD, WE, RNG, IG, there are so many exciting teams in the LPL. Definitely get involved. If you've been missing it, you've been missing out, to be quite honest. And we have a lot of good games coming up in week 6 as well. But I do think we should move on to our remaining segment for today. Now, because I have 2 LPL analysts with me today, I've devised a new sort of segment. We're going to call it Debate Club. Now, what we're going to do, chaps, is I'm going to score you guys. I'm going to pick a winner for each of these debates. Basically, I'm going to give you a topic, and I'm going to tell you guys which side of the debate you're going to be trying to argue for. So, for anyone listening at home, do not flame these guys on Twitter for their opinions here, because their opinions may not actually represent their actual opinions. This is more for the fun of having a little bit of an argument and having a little bit of fun. So, welcome to Debate Club, everyone. As you can see, I have 2 wonderful debaters sat above me on Discord. And the first topic that I'm going to give you guys to debate is that EDG are the best team in the LPL. Now, Orcs, I'm going to let you argue for this one. And Lyric, you're going to argue against this one. So, Orcs, as you're the guest on the show, I'm going to let you have the stage first. Please tell me why EDG are hands down the best team in the LPL.
Okay, so for me, I think EDG have shown that they have talent across the map. I think some of the weaknesses, in terms of the top lane with Flandre, he's been able to survive pretty well on the weak side. And I think the team is really good at setting up advantages for themselves. I think they can play through bot lane, they can play through mid. I think JJ is really good in tandem with Scout. And I think just Viper alone is such a standout player for this roster. It feels like, if teams are trying to, like, they can just get lane gapped, whether it's in the 2v2 bot, whether it's in the mid jungle. Even sometimes I've seen teams attempting to punish Flandre, going for the weak side and being punished in 1v2 scenarios. I think this is a team who have solid players all around, but then also function well as a team. They're good at pushing advantages. And I feel like, we have moments where teams might grab a lead. They might, have an advantage in the early game. That it comes to team fights and they just fall behind. I feel like EDG doesn't even always necessarily let it get to that point. They won't even necessarily let it get to the team fights. They'll be challenging you whenever you're stepping up on the map. They'll have really solid vision control to facilitate that. It feels like anywhere you step, there's a threat of being engaged on. So it doesn't even become a fair fight. There isn't that window to have an established 5v5 where, you pushed up mid, you've rotated the river, you've established control. I feel like for the most part, they are a pretty suffocating team if you fall behind, if you don't have an avenue to play through.
All right. Well, very, very book smarts answer right there. Very level-headed, very calm, very logical. Not feeling the emotion behind it, to be honest. Not feeling the emotion behind it. Lyric, what do you reckon?
What an absolute nerd, Munchables. Coming in here talking about good vision controls, good players across the board, not going to be Lane Kingdom. I don't buy it. And Munch, I'm smart. I'm coming into this knowing, hey, you're picking the winner. So you know why EDG aren't the best team? Because of a team called Top Esports, Munchables. Because of the Mojo hype train. You know a team that EDG can't Lane Kingdom? Top Esports. We saw Top Esports bot lane. They actually crushed Viper and Mako. They 2v2 killed them. What can they do? And when you look at top lane, Top Esports weak role Xingtian, guess what? Flandre can't do anything. Jidge is not going to help him. Scout's not going to help him. There is no one there, Munchables. There's no one there to shut down Xingtian, to take advantage of Top Esports. And then guess what? TS always have a way of pulling this into the trenches, making this dirty, making this crazy. And then we saw in their series with, a bit of hindsight and results-based analysis now, that Top Esports excel at that style. So EDG can't be the best team because Top Esports will be #Mojo. Pick me.
All right. Well, I'm not going to lie. Straight off the bat, round one, Lyric takes it.
Yeah.
Impassioned, powerful speech. He used the word mojo, which is worth 5 bonus points.
Plus, he picked Top Esports, and they're called Top. It's it's pretty expected.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. All right. So we'll swap things around. And this time, this one's going to be spicy. Lyric, you're going to go first on this one. The next debate topic is that Xiaohu is the LPL GOAT, the greatest of all time. Now, Lyric, as the resident Xiaohu apologist, you're going to be arguing against Xiaohu, sir. And Ox, you're going to be arguing for why Xiaohu is the GOAT. So, Lyric, please, sir, take it away. Tell me why Xiaohu is just not the best that we've ever had.
Oh, God. Well, wait. There was this player named Uzi, Munchables. There was this player named Uzi. Comes in Season 3, World Finalist. Comes in Season 4, World Finalist. Who were his teammates? A bunch of absolute trash cans. But it didn't matter. He still made it there. He still beat his fellow Chinese teams and whatever other team Star Horror Royal Club beat, because I honestly don't remember off the top of my head. And then Uzi, MSI champion. Sure, Xiaohu might have 2 of those, but the first one who carried Xiaohu to that title, no other than, Mr. Uzi himself.
I thought you were going to say Ming.
Oh, wait. I actually don't have much of an argument beyond that. So, Ox, you have a really nice shirt if you kind of want to, throw your argument. Just a nice beard as well, so,
Wow.
Oh, and wait. You're a great caster. You're up to you, my friend.
Well, now I know you've ring me up. Yeah, so, I mean, I appreciate the sentiment, old man, but Uzi, we haven't seen him for a while. Xiaohu's been on this RNG roster for a significant amount of time. He's been through the trenches. He's been there for, this most recent MSI, and he's had the role swap as well. He's shown that flexibility. He's shown that transition for the team, and he's shown that he's capable in multiple roles. I feel like Uzi was a massive factor for RNG and a big reason why they got recognition on the international stage, but he's left and there's been a lot of performances from the roster since then. They won in spring, they won MSI, they had a really hard-fought series against Amwon where everyone thought they would be coming out the victors, and I feel like the legacy has continued for this team, and Xiaohu has been at the forefront of that for this roster and has been such a massive part. I think, you have to pay credit to Uzi, but he's gone now. We are focused on Xiaohu and what this roster is doing. And he's been there for a long time. He's been performing. He's been carrying them to victory.
You know, I just got to say, the way you said he's gone now, that just hit me. That just really hit me.
Right through the heart, right through the heart. I will say, for this one, I'm sorry, Lyric, but Orcs gets the point. It's going to be one apiece.
Munch,
we are
Munch.
tied.
Wait. Just let me also contribute to his argument. Xiaohu also has double the amount of LPL titles than Uzi.
There you go.
True.
Okay.
And he's done it in multiple roles.
Yep.
He's definitely, I like, outside of the debate, I actually think Xiaohu is definitely the forerunner in the conversation of LPL GOAT.
I think Uzi might be the
you
best
have to
player
make
to ever come from LPL, but Xiaohu to me kind of has like the achievements and like the accomplishments now to kind of back up being like a GOAT, right?
And I think there are a few players that can be in that conversation, but I think that you have to argue reasons why Xiaohu isn't, as opposed to pitching players that are, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like he's the guy that you have to beat in terms of that title.
Dude, I can't argue against Xiaohu. You rigged that. You rigged that one.
That's okay. I did rig that. I did fully rig that. But that's the point of Debate Club, is to have a bit of banter. All right, moving on. The next topic is going to be the LPL doesn't stand a chance at Worlds. Now, I know neither of you wants to argue for this one. And since I was pretty mean to Lyric on the last
I'll take
topic,
it, dude.
I'm
I'll
gonna
take
be
it.
pretty mean
I can take it
to you this time. Well, I was thinking, since Orcs is a European coming over from Europe, casts the NLC all the time, he's obviously following the LEC all the time, I was going to let him have a stab at taking down the LPL. I'll let you go first here, Lyric, on this one, since arguing for the LPL, I feel like, is easier. We'll give Orcs a minute to think of his arguments. So, Lyric, over to you. Why is LPL going to win Worlds?
Look, we have 13 teams who it's not unimaginable to win LPL, right? Going from EDG all the way down to a team like IG isn't performing well. These other regions don't even have 13 teams, Munchables. You look at EU, okay, maybe two, maybe three good teams. You look at NA, I can't even name a good team. Maybe Cloud9 with Perks Magic. I don't know. Point is, no other good teams in other regions. You look at a team like EDG, a team we've already talked about, 18-3, crushing absolutely everyone. Suning making it to a world final without any experience, without really any good players at the time, if we're being real about it. Bin Huanfeng, they were okay, but they were only rookies, Munchables. They were only rookies. Now all the rookies from last year who got to finals, who made deep runs at Worlds, they have leveled up and they've gotten better. So, you know, I look at the LCK, Damwon's not doing so hot. They got Genji at Worlds, kind of sucked. They lost the game to LGD. Who loses a game to LGD at 2020 Worlds? No one. And then for LEC, it feels like teams have only gotten worse. You lost G2, NA, no argument.
I will say, you definitely lost points when you badmouthed my boy Sword Art, my boy Angel, my boy SOFM, but we move on. Orcs, over to you. Talk to me. Why is LPL... let me just read it word for word. Why does the LPL not stand a chance at Worlds?
Not stand a chance at World. Not stand a chance. You know,
this was a tough one.
Yeah. I mean, I look at LEC, and there's obviously this criticism that's been levied towards them about how G2 have, gone on worse. And I can understand that perspective, but I also think that you look at the likes of Rogue, you look at Mad Lions, and I think these teams have significantly gotten better. It's no longer a two-horse race in EU, and I feel like there's more teams competing for that title, and as a result, the region's gotten stronger. In LPL, there's a big spread of teams, but we really don't know who we're going to be getting to go through. As you said, there's 13 potential teams you could see realistically winning the split. That isn't necessarily a good thing, because some of those teams I don't think would do us justice at Worlds. You're hoping you get the EDG. You're hoping RNG comes in form. If it continues to be sort of a mess where you don't know who's going to come through, then you could end up with a scenario where you get V5 at Worlds. And, I don't think that have it in them.
I don't know if we got that far.
I think that's the one that could be a little bit painful. I think obviously Damwon are looking too hot, but ultimately MSI is the team killer. Everyone who went to MSI just sucks now. I think that's been established worldwide. But Genji are looking like a solid team. I think they've got a pretty stacked roster. I think Clid's been really good for them in the jungle role. And then NA, I'm not going to talk about stuff.
you know, Munch. But before you decide, I gotta say, thinking about it, my argument was so weird of trying to argue LPL last year was worse than now, so now they'll do better. And I didn't even mention MSI champions like how Ox just mentioned MSI. What am I doing?
Yeah.
What am I saying? Why do you have me being a debater?
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, the roster schedule actually ruined damn one at MSI. You know how they switched the timings of the semifinals? It's the only reason RNG won, so, you know, it was gifted to the LPL. In reality, Korea should have won.
Oh my god, the comments are going to be insane.
I don't know.
I was told to argue this, by the way. This does not represent my opinion. Don't kill me.
I respect it. I do think that our sixth man, Brother Beryl, definitely helped out as well. For this one, I'm actually kind of torn. I'm not going to lie. I'm not sure that you had the greatest. I feel like you had a really, really easy argument there, Lyric. And I feel like you kind of dropped the ball a bit. Honestly, I don't agree with the conclusion that he's drawn, but in terms of the debate, I'm going to give this one to Orcs. It's 2-1 now to Orcs.
Nice.
So, moving into the fourth topic.
I don't agree with the conclusion either, but... You know,
I feel like my strat isn't good where, like, I'm trying to use a lot of passion and not actually thinking about the words that are coming out of my mouth at all. Not even a little bit.
You're going full hysterics.
Exactly,
is what you're
dude.
saying.
I castled him too much. I'm just rubbing off on me.
He's rubbing off on you. All right, fourth topic. Now, this one's a meta-based topic instead of a team-based topic. Ooh. We've got 5 topics to make sure that we definitely have a winner at the end. The fourth topic is Diana is an overrated pick. Now, if you guys want, I'm going to let you decide amongst yourselves which side you want to argue if one of you has a strong opinion on this topic yourselves. Does anyone have a preference on positive or negative here?
I'm kind of vibing with Diana is overrated, you know?
All right.
I totally agree with you, but whatever. I'll argue for Diana. Let's go. Fuck this champion, dude.
No swearing.
Don't worry, it can be beeped out in post-production.
Fingers crossed. All right, Orcs, you wanted it, so over to you. Tell us why Diana is overrated.
So, obviously, we've seen the scenarios where Diana, you know, she doesn't get challenged in the early game. She can farm up. She gets her ultimate. All her teammates have a ton of CC, and the enemy team clumps together and decides standing, you know, holding hands in the river is a smart thing to do. Then, yeah, Diana is great. But we also see a lot of scenarios where she gets challenged in the early game. She doesn't have that agency. Pre-6, she's just not that good at skirmishing compared to a lot of the junglers in the current meta. If you have a numbers advantage, you can burst a target out, but she's not going to hold up against something like an Olaf, a Lee Sin. These champions can really just run over her. And if you don't have prio on your lanes, you're not going to be able to really farm your jungle easily. And that's the thing. If you're picking prio just so your jungler can survive instead of actually giving something to your team, it's not necessarily that good of a scenario. And we're also seeing scenarios like when Sylas steals the ultimate and finds more agency. I think she has a place in the meta. I think the reason all the teams are picking her is purely because she provides AP in the jungle. And then because, you know, teams are winning with her, they're like, oh, Diana must be really strong. We need to prioritize this champion. Really, I think it's the lack of AP in the jungle has caused this champion to go up in priority. But teams just keep picking it. And I feel like you have to have so many things for it to work. You need prio lanes so that she can have a free time. You need CC to facilitate her ult so she can actually get a good team fight. And then even then, you have to make sure you're getting a good engage to set the Diana up. I think it's like, you know, she is good in the right scenario, but I think that the fact she's just being picked all the time, seen as like a really high pick ban champion, is just not needed.
Look, all right, Orcs really doesn't like Diana. Over to you, Lyric.
Look, Munchables. First, to start off my argument, let's just take note that Ox did say the words Diana is good. You know, in certain scenarios, might have been after that, but the words are there, Munchables. So, you know, Ox is even
forget the context.
Ox is even in my corner. But you know, Diana, the big thing about Diana to me right now is something Ox already hit on. She enables the AD soul laners. You think about other AP junglers in the meta right now, and there's actually none. We've had 2 games of Gwen and 1 of Rumble. So literally, if you want to push picks like the Nocturne, like the Viego, like the Sets, the Renekton's to their fullest, you pretty much need the Diana on your team. And then when it goes to things like, you know, requiring early prio or this pick can be punished, luckily, I feel like most teams in LPL aren't good enough, aren't smart enough to punish it. And the teams that need prio, guess what? We only count good teams here in this debate, and all those teams, they don't need prio. Teams like Top Esports, teams like FPX, they're going to win no matter the champions they play, or like Doinby, every champion they pick its prio. So the Diana's going to be enabled. And then guess what? This meant is all about short-range champions that have no choice but to stack up and get hit by that Moonfall. And remember Karsa's game against EDG. Look at what Diana can do, Munchables. Look at it.
It's true. Diana definitely feeling good. I have to say, you complimented Doomby. That's always going to make me happy. You complimented Karsa. That's always going to make me happy. And sure, Orcs, you used facts and logic. You tried to Ben Shapiro me, but I'm not on board. I'm giving this one to Lyric. Ben Shapiro loses another day. It's time to move to the last category. It's 2 points apiece as we head into the decider here. There's tense music in the background in my head. I want everyone at home to imagine that as well. Now, the final topic, and this one is going to get heated. Munch is the best podcast host to grace this earth. Now, once again, I'm going to let you guys argue over who gets to nominate themselves, but I feel like
I'm just going to guess
this
that
one could be
Ox is going
close.
to... My guess is Ox is going to enjoy arguing against. That's just my gut feeling. Maybe I'm wrong, but...
I can see that.
It's
all right, you know what?
You say it, Joe. What are you feeling?
I was just going to say, yeah, go for it, Lyric. You've made a decent enough argument. We're running out of time of the podcast, so fire away, mate.
Look.
Oh, do you know what? Joe, let's end on a high note.
True.
Orcs, you can flame me first, then let's end on a high note.
Okay, so, kicking things off, came into the call today, and Joe was pretty mean to me. I actually made a pretty funny joke. I would say hilarious. And he actually said something quite rude to me, which was hurtful. I mean, I'm not saying he should, suck up to me or anything. I like the banter on the show, but this wasn't on the show. This was pre-show. He didn't appreciate my joke about was this refrigerator running, and it just kind of put it down on the whole mood for this show. I feel it was hurtful. As a guest, you want to feel included with everything. You want to feel like your jokes are going to resonate with the rest of the crew. It was upsetting, Joe. And regardless of where this debate goes, I'd quite like an apology.
I feel like this is a formal complaint.
It feels like it.
Forget the debate. I'm actually maybe going to get fired.
You haven't got enough hair to be a host. You kind of lacking. It's kind of getting that Joe Rogan feel, which, isn't the vibe you want to be hitting towards.
Hey, at least I'll have a kick like a shotgun. So there's
that. That's all I got. But I do want that apology, Joe. By the way, it was a good joke.
Okay. I'm sorry. Your terrible joke didn't land. I'm sorry that hurt your feelings.
Wow.
Lyric, over to you, sir. This one's not going to be a hard one to win, I fear.
Look. Just imagine it. Little Kevin Smith in his living room thinking to himself, man, I love League of Legends. I love alcohol. I love people completely BSing and going off topic and tangents for hours, but there's nothing for me. Well, guess what, little Kevin Smith? There's this guy named Munchables who creates the best podcast on earth, Bevies with the Boys. And then bam, that's all. That's the only answer I need, because Bevies with the Boys is a banger. You get alcohol, you get League of Legends. Really combine those two things. I mean, heck, you're both, from the UK. I feel like, Bevies and League of Legends is kind of your guys' lives. There we go. Let's go next.
Not wrong. All right, respectable. I've been actively told I'm not allowed to promote my other shows on LPL products,
you didn't.
I didn't, so I can't get in trouble for this one. Let's go.
Maybe
all right,
that gets
Lyric gets the
too.
final point. Yeah, for shamelessly promoting my personal content.
I feel like that was always going to be the winner. I feel like the winner was decided. Whoever sides with Joe is just a free pass.
I honestly thought he would make both of us argue for he's the best, and then just decide who did better at doing that.
Yeah. No, you're right. I should have done that. That was a mistake. Never mind. Maybe I'm not the best podcast host after all. But that's okay, because we had a good time. We talked about the LPL. And we laid down some opinions. So, as we round the episode out, Orcs, anything you want to say to the audience as we finish things up here?
Thanks for watching, and everyone who's been supportive of my journey to the LPL. My first chance on a major broadcast. It's pretty overwhelming. There's a lot of good casters who, obviously, on the show I have to live up to, and also a lot of good teams I'm trying to learn and do my best for. So, I hope you've enjoyed my casting so far, and I hope I get to do a lot more.
Awesome. Well, you've been a massive positive being included in the team. You've absolutely smashed it so far, mate. So we're more than happy to have you here on the LPL. But with that, that's going to round out our episode. So thank you, everyone, for watching episode number 5 of The Last Hit for Summer 2021 LPL. We've got more episodes coming at you once every single week. The LPL is on 7 days a week. Do not miss it, because week 6 is going to be a banger. Come and preview the world champions before they even make it to Worlds. You know where to be. Until then, though, we'll see you guys in Champ Select.